Y'all, it's Jessica from the Bear River Homestead. Today I'm going to show you how to dehydrate green beans from frozen green beans that I actually picked up from the grocery store on clearance. I don't have a pressure canner. I actually have a glass top stove, and so I can't pressure can on it, and I really don't have a very efficient way of pressure canning outside, so I use my dehydrator a lot for things that aren't safe to water bath can. And my garden actually flopped this year. This is my first year trying to garden in the Wyoming cold, arid climate. So about the only thing I had that did well were greens and root crops. I did have some strawberries, but I didn't get much in the way of green beans. So when I saw that our local grocery store was having a sale on frozen green beans, I grabbed up about 5 bags worth, and I'm going to go ahead and dehydrate them because I do have limited freezer space, and I prefer to use my freezer for things like meat and dairy products that I really can't dehydrate for long-term storage. So what I've done, I dumped all of my green beans into a colander, and I thawed them rapidly by just rinsing them with hot water, and then I've allowed them to sit on some paper towels and drain out as much excess water as I could get, and that's going to speed up the drying process a little bit. I have my dehydrator ready to go. I have 4 trays. I don't know that we'll need all 4, but we'll see. Something really important to keep in mind when you are dehydrating is that you want your product to be in a very even layer. You don't want clumps of your fruit or veggie on the trays because they won't dry as evenly, and you might have some spots that didn't dry completely, which can actually make the food go rancid or spoil, and you would have to throw away all of it. So make sure it's in a thin, even layer. And my dehydrator is nothing fancy. I got it for about $80. There are cheaper ones. There are definitely more expensive ones. If you decide that you are really into dehydrating, the big 10 tray ones can run a few $100s. But the way I look at it is this is an investment, because I will be saving considerably on grocery expenses, especially once I'm successful in my gardening endeavors, because then I will be dehydrating produce that I grew myself. And again, you just want to spread it out. Make sure you have a nice even layer. They're not overlapping too much. We're going to go ahead and add our second tray. And with a dehydrator like this one, during the drying process, I will actually need to rotate the trays just so they all get dried evenly. And in our climate, we don't have a lot of humidity in the air, generally speaking. So even though these are still pretty wet from the thawing process, I would say they'll be done 8 to 12 hours. And when I was still working, what I would do, I would put in whatever I was going to dry that day, turn on my dehydrator, and then go to work. Some people aren't comfortable with that, and of course that's perfectly fine. But these things work kind of similar to a slow cooker. They don't get very hot.
So as long as you don't have papers laying around them or anything that might catch fire, I've always felt pretty comfortable just letting mine go. And then that way when I got home from work, usually they would be ready for me to put into jars. And I store all of my dehydrated items in glass jars, either mason jars or I save my spaghetti sauce jars. When I buy commercial spaghetti sauce, they are awesome for this. Just anything with a secure lid. You can store in, Ziploc bags, plastic containers, pretty much anything that's going to be relatively airtight. I just have a preference for glass because it can be reused and there's considerably much less chance of various pests getting at your food. We're on our last tray. When you are dehydrating, especially store-bought items, it just goes really, really quickly. I mean, this is taking me all of 7 minutes or so to do this video. And this will be several meals worth of green beans. Another benefit of dehydrating is you save a lot of space. In one of my quart size canning jars, I can fit several dozen ears of corn, or corn kernels that I've dehydrated. I imagine once these green beans are dehydrated, they will take up probably a quarter of a quart jar, possibly up to a half of a quart. Whereas if I had canned these green beans, I would have to make room for several quart jars, and I just don't have that much room in my pantry. So, alright, looks like we got them all, so we're going to add our lid. And for fruits and vegetables, you're usually going to dry it on 135. So I've got that turned on. And then we'll just plug it in and let it go. And I will be back once these have finished drying to show you what a dried green bean is supposed to look like. Well, we are back and our green beans have finished dehydrating. It's taken them about 9 hours. And I actually just turned the dehydrator off. You can see that they are all shriveled up and dry, hard, easy to break. And that's how you know if a vegetable is completely dried or not. If it's still pretty pliable, soft, then it's still got some moisture in there, and if you store items that have not been completely dehydrated, they can actually mold and go rancid and spoil. So these guys are good to go. I'm going to pop them in a mason jar and set them up on my shelf, and they should be good for, well, several months, if not longer. If you decide you want to use your home dehydrated products for long-term storage, I would recommend investing in Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers, both of which can be bought on Amazon, any sort of prepping website that sells prepping supplies, and then you can keep them, for several years. I hope y'all enjoyed this quick little video, and I hope y'all try dehydrating. It's a super fast and easy way to preserve your vegetables, whether you grow them yourself or buy them in the grocery store. Happy homesteading, y'all.